Number 33 Jugwanjog Jongyamgwa Wangyungi Sanghohajonji Gyeoljongjeogan Yogaleul Ham. Because the environment plays a significant role in aiding meaningful internal processes, subjective experience and the environment act as a coupled system. This coupled system can be seen as a complete cognitive system of its own. In this manner, subjective experience is extended into the external environment and vice versa. The external environment with its disciplinary objects such as institutional laws and equipment becomes mental institutions that affect our subjective experience and solutions. A subjectively held belief attains the status of objectivity when the belief is socially shared. That is, even if we are trained as hard-nosed healthcare rationalists, or no-nonsense bureaucrats, or data-driven scientists, research has shown that our decisions are influenced by various institutional practices. They include bureaucratic structures and procedures, the architectural design of healthcare institutions, the rules of evidence and the structure of allowable questions in a courtroom trial, the spatial arrangement of kindergartens and supermarkets, and a variety of conventions and practices designed to manipulate our emotions. Number 34. Any attempt to model musical behavior or perception in a general way is filled with difficulties. With regard to models of perception, the question arises of whose perception we are trying to model, even if we confine ourselves to a particular culture and historical environment. Surely the perception of music varies greatly between listeners of different levels of training. Indeed, a large part of music education is devoted to developing and enriching, and therefore likely changing, these listening processes. While this may be true, I am concerned here with fairly basic aspects of perception, particularly meter and key, which I believe are relatively consistent across listeners. Anecdotal evidence suggests, for example, that most people are able to find the beat in a typical folk song or classical piece. This is not to say that there is complete uniformity in this regard. There may be occasional disagreements, even among experts, as to how we hear the tonality or meter of a piece. But I believe the commonalities between us far outweigh the differences. Number 36. Wildfire is a natural phenomenon in many Australian environments. The intentional setting of fire to manage the landscape was practiced by Aboriginal people for millennia. However, the pattern of burning that stockmen introduced was unlike previous regimes. When conditions allowed, they would set fire to the landscape as they moved their animals out for the winter. This functioned to clear woody vegetation and also stimulated new plant growth in the following spring. The young shoots were a ready food source for their animals when they returned. However, the practice also tended to reinforce the scrubby growth it was intended to control. Although grasses were the first kinds of plants to recolonize the burnt areas, they were soon succeeded by further woody plants and shrubs. About the only strategy to prevent such regrowth was further burning, essentially using fire to control the consequences of using fire. Number 37. There are a number of human resource management practices that are necessary to support organizational learning. For example, performance evaluation and reward systems that reinforce long-term performance and the development and sharing of new skills and knowledge are particularly important. In addition, the human resource development function may be dramatically changed to keep the emphasis on continuous learning. In a learning organization, every employee must take the responsibility for acquiring and transferring knowledge. Formal training programs, developed in advance and delivered according to a preset schedule, are insufficient to address shifting training needs and encourage timely information sharing. Rather, human resource development professionals must become learning facilitators. Their role should be to assist, consult, and advise teams on how best to approach learning. They must be able to develop new mechanisms for cross-training peers, team members, and new systems for capturing and sharing information. To do this, human resource development professionals must be able to think systematically and understand how to promote learning within groups and across the organization. Number 39. There are interesting trade-offs in the relative importance of subject matter, i.e., figure, and style, i.e., background. In highly representational paintings, plays, or stories, the focus is on subject matter that resembles everyday life, and the role of background style is to facilitate the construction of mental models. Feelings of pleasure and uncertainty carry the viewer along to the conclusion of the piece. In highly expressionist works, novel stylistic devices work in an inharmonious manner against the subject matter, thereby creating a disquieting atmosphere. Thus, when the work is less readable or easily interpreted, its departure from conventional forms reminds the viewer or reader that an aesthetic attitude is needed to appreciate the whole episode. This active involvement provides a basis for depth of aesthetic processing and reflection on the meaning of the work. An ability to switch between the pragmatic attitude of everyday life and an aesthetic attitude is fundamental to a balanced life. Number 41. If we understand critical thinking as the identification and evaluation of evidence to guide decision-making, then ethical thinking is about identifying ethical issues and evaluating these issues from different perspectives to guide how to respond. This form of ethics is distinct from higher levels of conceptual ethics or theory. The nature of an ethical issue or problem from this perspective is that there is no clear right or wrong response. It is therefore essential that students learn to think through ethical issues rather than follow a prescribed set of ethical codes or rules. There is a need to encourage recognition that, although being ethical is defined as acting in accordance with the principles of conduct that are considered correct, these principles vary both between and within individuals. What a person values relates to their social, religious, or civic beliefs influenced by their formal and informal learning experiences. Individual perspectives may also be context-dependent, meaning that under different circumstances, at a different time, when they are feeling a different way, the same individual may make different choices. Therefore, in order to analyze ethical issues and think ethically, it is necessary to understand the personal factors that influence your own code of behavior, and how these may vary, alongside recognizing and accepting that the factors that drive other people's codes and decision-making may be different.